All right. So listen, today at this point, we do this. It is, yeah, that works. In the gym, John and Marty. Boys, I got an idea. I want to hear about John's experience in North Korea. Marty, what do you think about that?
Let's do it.
I think we'll do this. Tina, why don't you and I get off stage? Let's leave Richie on stage with Marty and John. Richie, why don't you and Marty sit down with Johnny for the John and Marty in the gym section, and let's get to know about John's journey through North Korea as a wrestler. Johnny, you want to do that?
Let's go, baby.
Let's do it. This is going to be fun because I want to, Lawrence, you food chew fasted. Yes. All right, let's go. Martina, let's get off stage. Let's let these guys go to work. Marty, you're up, brother.
All right, let's talk about it. How did the process start? You getting to North Korea? Who'd you talk to? Who'd you meet? How'd the opportunity pop up? And what was your thought when it popped up? Did you say no at first?
There was definitely some questioning going on for sure. So ultimately, my wrestling career had subsided. My wrestling career was over. I'd gotten released. Now I'm a pro bodybuilder. And so I'm doing the bodybuilding thing and got my gym and I've changed gears. And then one of the companies I worked for they reached out, and it's fairly common for them to bring you back for short little mini tours, little blips. Said, hey, we got this gig. You're going to be teaming with Bob Sapp. He's a MMA fighter. I'm going to do some wrestling too, big old monster. He said, we're going to tag you guys up. I said, okay, that sounds good. Give me more details. Where are we going? And they're like, we're going to North Korea. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay. How are we? My first question is, how are we going to know we're going to be safe? And they said, basically, we've got it all set up to where the publicist for the company was going to be doing an associated press release every day so that because we would be monitored in worldwide news, it would be difficult for us to just disappear. I thought, okay, that's
what year is this?
2014. And so anyway, so I said, okay, let's obviously, plus it was think of like hazard pay. It was a good payoff. So I thought, and then it's also too, one of the things I think about is God, with the fat little boy, because he was a fat little boy and turned all those difficulties into blessings. Look at the shit that I've got to do. I've traveled the world, and how many people get to go to North Korea? And I also saw that thing with Dennis Rodman where he went there and blah, blah, blah. So it was like, okay, they're clearly bringing some people in and out. And if it's done properly, there is some level of safety there. So I said, let's go. So I tell my mom, and she's, oh no, you're going to South Korea. I said, okay, Mom, I'm just letting in about a month, I'm going to be going. And so many people I told were like, no, you're going to South Korea. They're just looking at me. The big dummy doesn't know the difference between North and South Korea. And so anyway, so literally I'm at the airport and I'm a mama's boy to the command. So I called my mom and I said, hey, I just calling this. I'm getting ready to get on the plane. I'm going to North Korea. And she says, no, you're going to South Korea. I said, Mom, I'm just calling you to let you know I'm going to North Korea. I can look at my tickets and I can tell you I'm going to North Korea. She said, well, that's awfully dangerous. I said, Mom, I tried to tell you this a month ago. So if you had any questions for me, I could answer it. Anyway, so boom. Anyway, we went through China. That was how they got us in and out of there. So we went to China for a night. Then we flew into North Korea. But when we got there, man, it just was so different. Now, granted, they only let us see what we wanted to see. But here's a perfect example. We landed on this airstrip. And looking around, there's nothing. It's just an airstrip in the middle of the forest, big clearing. And we probably had to go 3 or 4 miles in this airplane to get to this airport. I mean, basically get out and we get into customs, and what do? They take our cell phones and they take our passports. So we're basically stuck. Now, I had a second phone, and what they said was, and I kept it with me. They said, if we find a signal, if you turn a cell phone on and we get a signal, basically politely said, we're coming to get you. It was very clear what we couldn't do. So it wasn't like I wanted to go home. So I had no problem. I just basically used that phone to take some pictures here and there. But anyway, so we get there, and it was, as the experience goes on, cell phone's gone, passport's gone. It's becoming a little more real. And I'm getting a little alarmed, I'll be honest. There's only me and Bob Sapp. We're the only Americans there. It was called Wrestling for Peace. So there's people from Japan, and there are other wrestlers from Japan and a few other countries. They're not American. We're like the public enemy number one over there. And so,
John, are y'all probably the only 2 Americans in the country, though? Not just America,
very
right?
possibly. At least the 2 Americans that are free. There may have been some there.
Right.
Anyway, so we pull out from the airport. And as soon as we get on the road, all these sirens come. And I'm like, holy shit, they're already coming to get us. And you can hear these sirens coming, and there's a lot of them, and they're getting closer and closer. And this is just the part of me that's, holy shit, what did I do? That voice in me is really starting to turn me like, oh, what did you do, you dipshit? And all of a sudden, all these cop cars, they basically go right up in front of us, pull in front of us. So there's 3 or 4 in front, 3 or 4 behind. We're being escorted. Everywhere we went, we had a police escort. And then we get to the hotel. And if you want to see what we saw, you watch the Dennis Rodman documentary. Literally, we were in the exact same spot. So clearly, anytime they bring someone in, they're putting them in that same, they're putting you right there. And they took great care of us. For me, it was perfect. Yeah, here's the kitchen, or excuse me, here's the dining room, and the kitchen's right there. Anytime you want something to eat, just come sit down and there'll be someone to take care of you. I was like, talking my language, baby. So I was just plowing through steaks and everything else that I wanted to order, which was great. Anyway, we're there. And literally every time you do something outside of that hotel, they've got someone there to follow you or watch you. You're not doing anything without some sort of an escort. And
did you have schedule time? Could you just walk out on the street, or do you have to tell somebody like, hey, this is when I'm going?
We were on a schedule, but we had free time. So during that free time, we could walk out on the street, but keep in mind, you weren't getting out on the street without somebody walking 5 feet behind you. And you figured that out real quick. So but some of the guys were cool and they even spoke English. So I remember starting to befriend some of them because it was just interesting to talk to them. Anyway, so then the event, so we did all sorts of stuff. And some of the stuff they showed us, like they took us to an opera house. It was absolutely beautiful. Some of them, we actually went to, I don't know what you'd call it, but it was the place where all of the leaders lived. It was like this castle. I've never been in a building that was that magnificent. We're talking 40-foot ceilings. And they took us into, it was a tour basically. And they took us to I don't know what you'd call it. It was like an area where the different generations of leaders were. So the current one, by the way, we were told not even to say his name, because if you said it with the wrong tone, that was an offense. So he just didn't say it. But ultimately, crazy. You go into this room and, the father of the current leader, and he's in a casket and looks like he died yesterday. They've got him, taking great care of him. They showed his car. Inside this room, they showed his favorite car that he drove. They showed his private jet. All of the stuff that he used personally was in this room. So you were getting like a full flavor of what was going on with the previous leader. And as we went more generations, so we went actually 3 generations, to the point where you're seeing that by the time you got to the oldest one, he was looking pretty sucked up. They needed to put some more filler in him because he was looking a little.
You're looking at their actual bodies.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. And check this out. In the oldest one that we saw, it wasn't planes. It wasn't cars. It was like, literally, it was a train. It was they went by train and boat. That's what we saw. So we went from like really luxury vehicles they were driven around in and private jet to however many generations before, where it was a boat and a train. So it was a trip to see how times had changed as they had gone through the generations and lived through into current time. So anyway, so at this thing, I'm tired, man. I'm beat up. I just won my pro card. So I was recovering from a really nasty prep. And I was just in that mode where I could just be in the middle of the day. I could just fall asleep. So this tour, they're walking us through and I'm like, holy shit, man. I just need to sit down. I need to lay down. I'm tired. And I keep just out of second, I just not even thinking about it. I keep putting my hands in my pockets because I can put my hands in my pockets and prop myself up. So I do it. And first time I do it, I don't think anything of it. Then shortly after, I feel someone comes up behind me, grabs my forearms and pulls my hands out of my pockets. Whoa, that was interesting. That might have been the first time that's ever happened. Okay, not supposed to do that. Woke me up. I'm good.
Was that North Korean?
What's that? Say again?
Oh, no, I said, was that a North Korean? Because that dude had to be nervous. You're a big guy.
I don't know. He was a North Korean for sure, but he's probably thinking I do my job or I get beheaded. He's probably thinking now the consequence of me putting a whooping on him doesn't even compare to what he's got to deal with if he doesn't do his job. Anyway, so I'm tired and we get to the next leader's room and I just do it again, not even thinking about it. All of a sudden, the same thing, but it's a much more firm grip on my forearms. Pull my hands out and put them down. Oh, Jesus, I'm going to end this is not good. I'm not supposed to, when they tell us not to do something, we're not supposed to repeat the offense. I know this is little, but I'm thinking shit. But anyway, I do it a third time. I'm like, oh, God. Then now the hands are like, bam, on my forearms. They're pulling my hands out and jerking them down. I'm like, okay, uncle, I'm awake. So weird shit like that. And then in the arena, this was a really trippy thing. You basically, normally you walk out into arena and you got 25, 35,000 people going bananas and they're yelling just because you walked out behind the curtain, right? And we walk out with this place, it's dead silent. Nobody's saying a word. You could hear a damn pin drop. And I'm looking around and normally you used to seeing all these different colors. It's just this barrage of colors and shapes because everybody is a little different. Everybody's dressed different. Maybe hats, maybe not hats. Dude, it was crazy. Everybody was wearing a light blue t-shirt and they all had a little red pin on their left pec. And it was just like straight up. These people, they had no idea what was happening. Perfect example, in the match, and Bob and I are doing our thing, and we go with our big finisher, which if you have any understanding of wrestling, what's going on, they had no idea that we just did our big finisher. It was still quiet. So these people were basically told to show up here, and clearly they had been not exposed to anything that we were doing because they had no clue what was happening. And so it was a very different experience, to say the least. So the biggest thing that happened that was scariest for me on this trip was this. So they tell us, hey, we're going to get you there. This is what's going to happen. We'll basically stamp your passport in China, but we're not going to stamp it in North Korea. Because obviously coming home, you got a stamp from North Korea. What the hell are you doing there? You know what I mean? And so U.S. Customs, I can only imagine what they were having a heyday with that one. So I get my passport back and they stamped it, which now is really cool that I have a passport stamped with North Korea. But at the time I was shitting in my pants. So anyway, I get home, we go through China again, basically get home, and I'm coming through customs, and I just thought I'm going to be totally honest, and hopefully the questions I have to answer don't uncover exactly what I did. And so the guy said, where are you coming from? I said, China. He said, okay. He saw that passport. He saw that stamp. Let me through. And I was like, man, did I just dodge a bullet right there? So the North Korea trip, to say the least, was a really interesting experience.
Wow. That's all I can say. And I can listen to that all day. And I think we got to do more of this with John in North Korea, because nobody gets to go to North Korea. So and we had Marty come in and say, did you have to pay respect to the statue? And I think that there's a number of questions that just come out of my mind when I'm hearing you tell the story, John. Did you have to pay respect to the statue?
What we did was, and this was like an order. And this came from basically our people. They're like, look, when you go out there, I know you're all trained to go straight for the hard camera. Do not look at the hard camera. You need to turn and address the panel. And the panel was there. He wasn't there. The leader wasn't there, but I'm sure all of his, whatever you call them, henchmen were. And there was like 7 or 8 of these chairs. And they're just regular people. And they're little people sitting there. The backs of those chairs were probably 20 feet tall. So we were literally told to go out there, get in the ring, turn left, because the hard camera was actually a little bit to the right. So they did not want us addressing the hard camera first. We had to get in the ring, turn left, address whoever these people were with a little bow, and then we went back to our thing. And if we didn't do that, it was going to be hammer time. And that's what they told us, that if you mess this up, we're really out of line. And basically they're trying not to freak us out too much, because obviously we're getting ready to perform. But yeah, you really had to take things literal.
That's awesome. In the gym with John and Marty, every single day we do it here at 9:15 Eastern time. It is a segment where we put John and Marty in the gym, and we're going to tell stories. We're going to give you guys tips and tricks and hacks to help you guys get to the gym. And today we talked about John's journey to North Korea as a wrestler. And I want to come back to that. Richie and Marty, it's you, John, as I'm getting to know you, and B, it's North Korea. And that to me is like the stories, and the fact that you have a stamp in your passport from North Korea.
Yeah, I keep that passport tucked away because that's really cool. I've traveled so much. I actually have, I've got 3 retired passports, and they actually put extra pages in. The one that from North Korea, that one right there, man, I'm keeping that thing in a safe spot because that's something that's pretty cool.
I've already put my hand up with Johnny. I was talking to him one day. John is a pencil and paper guy, and John has written calendars of 20, 30 years of his life. And I said to John, I'm like, John, if the girls don't want the calendars one day when life passes you, I'll put my hand up and I'll grab them. And Johnny, I want that passport too, brother. I'll take care of it for you. I'll take
it. Just to clarify, it's even better. It's not a calendar. It's better than a calendar book where every single day has its own page. And these things go back to 1992.